The following video offers a complete overview of the Philosophy of the Unconscious course. All members of the portal get access to the course as part of the membership. For all other information related to the course or to take the course as a standalone process, check the links in the description. Welcome to the Philosophy of the Unconscious. This presentation is designed to introduce a brand new course at Philosophy Portal, which is a remix and a redesign of a course that I originally taught in 2019 when I really first started to get involved in online content creation, online course creation, and specifically in the direction of the Slovenian school tradition, Slavoj Zizek's philosophy, but also psychoanalysis and the way in which Zizek, Zupancic, Dollar, among others, have been influenced by psychoanalysis philosophically. And this remix, this remaster, is really the culmination of over 8 years of work. So in this course, you will have access to the contents originally recorded in 2019, but they are creatively coupled with content that has been developing both before the existence of Philosophy Portal as well as after the existence of Philosophy Portal around 2022. The content as a whole spans materials from 2018 to 2026. And like I say, in this video, you're going to get an introduction of everything that's included in the Philosophy of the Unconscious course, as well as some of the core reasons why this course is worth engaging in the first place. So let's get right into it. Philosophy of the Unconscious. What you'll see here is that the course as a whole is primarily interested in the philosophical implications of the Freudian discovery. And from my mind, the core idea when people talk about a distinction between pre and post-Freudian psychology, when people talk about and associate Freud with the notion of the unconscious, what is really being said there? Sometimes it can be obscure, sometimes it can be left in unclear terms. In this course, I really focus on the distinction between consciousness and the psyche, and that these two terms are not equal to each other. And I think this distinction is not only the foundation of the whole course, but really important in the context of scientific, philosophical, psychological, psychoanalytic thought as a whole. Because if you read in popular literature the way people talk about our psychology, usually the terms consciousness and psyche are conflated. And oftentimes there's an overemphasis actually on consciousness. So watch out for that. And I see that personally as a marker of the distinction between a pre-Freudian and a post-Freudian understanding of our psyche. What Freud really discovered is that the psyche, traditionally associated, conflated with the term consciousness, is actually much vaster than just consciousness. Freud develops a model where he's thinking about our psyche as consciousness, of course, but also preconscious and unconscious. That is, not conscious. Un simply means not. And it's this model, the idea that the psyche is tripartite, the idea that the psyche includes dimensions, more importantly, that we're not aware of, actually, that creates such a rupture, which creates such a discontinuity with quote-unquote pre-Freudian thought, what will be referred to in the course as thought about the psyche in classical philosophy, for example, Plato, but also thought in classical science, pre-Freudian psychology. And both classical philosophy and classical science continue to operate, as well as some of the more contemporary sciences, whether that's neuroscience or cognitive science. Oftentimes, they are not operating with this model of the tripartite distinctions between consciousness, preconscious, and unconscious. And that creates all of a meaningful difference between what Freud's trying to get at when he's talking about our psychology and what our focus tends to be when we are developing the cognitive sciences, the neurosciences. Consequently, the unconscious, the preconscious dimensions of our minds are usually just not considered. They're not integrated, so to speak, into our general understanding of psychology. This course, Philosophy of the Unconscious, tries to correct this and tries to present not only different modules, which are organized around different themes, as we'll get to, inclusive of this model of the conscious, the preconscious, the unconscious, but also connects with living projects, living thinkers who are actively developing this understanding of the psyche. So let's go to the next point, which is that really the main consequence of this model that Freud's developing is that consciousness is really actively repressing the unconscious. And this is kind of a meta important point in the sense that no matter how smart you are, no matter how educated you are, this relationship or non-relationship between consciousness and the unconscious is operative. So, for example, when contemporary philosophers or scientists equate consciousness and the psyche, a lot of what is going on here is a kind of active repression of the unconscious, because taking in this non-relationship between consciousness and the unconscious has profound implications. You can't know everything. A lot of what you are and a lot of what you're doing is actually not transparent to you. There are unconscious motivations, there are unconscious passions, there are unconscious fantasies, and they are active within you, both while you're awake and while you're asleep. And being curious, being interested in the unconscious is part of a subjective shift, part of a subjective change that emerges not only within clinical psychoanalysis, but also, I think, within the philosophy of the unconscious, philosophers who are actually interested in what the discovery of the unconscious means for philosophy itself, for thought itself, for intellectual life itself. Freud himself, in many ways, is so revolutionary not only because of the discovery of the unconscious, but because of the method by which he investigates the nature of the unconscious. Freud was not the first person to theorize the existence of the unconscious. We can find materials in Hegel, we can find materials in Schelling, we can find materials in many other philosophers of the 19th century, Nietzsche, who were well aware of the existence of the unconscious. What really separates Freud is his method, and that is the method of free association. And this is something that he develops in the 1890s, which distinguishes psychoanalysis from the hypnotic methods, the suggestive methods that were being developed by people like Brewer and others. But it's the free association, it's the way in which Freud bypasses conscious censorship in the analytic clinic that really opens up a new domain, opens up a new field. And in this course, we go into not only the discovery, the development of the method, how free association works, but some of the materials that Freud starts to discover with this method. It's an extremely powerful tool. And again, this is what makes psychoanalysis itself a field distinct from, say, just philosophical speculations about the potential of the unconscious mind, which was very much in the zeitgeist in 19th century philosophy from Hegel and Schelling onwards. And associated with that, the role of the analyst, the role of an analyst in unpacking, exploring the unconscious dimension of the psyche, the alien terrain of the unconscious mind from the perspective of the consciousness, from the perspective of the conscious mind. This is also totally new. This is the origin of the analytic clinic. the origin of the talking cure, and it also brings up a number of new philosophical issues about the position of the analyst, the role of the analyst, the ethics of analysis itself. All of this is material that we unpack, we explore, we go throughout the course itself, and it really is kind of like the opening of an alien world. But the weird thing is that this alien world is perhaps unexpected from the position of the scientific universe, not external universe, alien beings from another planet, the alien dimension of our own mind. If you like, the extimate space, the external intimate space of our own minds is what becomes of interest for psychoanalysis. Now, this course is designed not only to introduce you to the Freudian discovery, the development of analysis itself, although that is an absolutely crucial aspect of the course to understand the way psychoanalysis came to be, the original ideas, the original speculations, the original thoughts that Freud was wrestling with in the 1890s and the 1900s, the early 1900s. But it's also connected directly to where Lacan picks up from Freud. Freud was Lacan's core inspiration, his return to Freud. And at Philosophy Portal, we've taught an Acree course where we're basically doing a return to Lacan. So we're also carrying on this tradition. But Lacan, of course, he's diving into the core Freudian materials. He is extremely critical of the way the second generation Freudians are interpreting the discovery. This is where Lacan's critique of ego psychology comes into the picture. But through Lacan's commitment and persistence and fidelity to the Freudian discovery, he ultimately becomes arguably the most influential Freudian of the 20th century. Of course, figures like Carl Jung, also within psychoanalysis, the origins of psychoanalysis. He is perhaps the most famous psychoanalyst. However, he breaks from Freud. He, in many ways, tries to distinguish himself from Freud and Freud's discoveries, whereas Lacan is, again, faithful, has a certain fidelity to what Freud originally discovered, the methods by which he's exploring the unconscious, and the way in which that leads to innovations in the analytic clinic itself, very controversial, and still to this day, Lacanian analysis is controversial, and in many ways is disconnected and disparate from many other fields, and that's a whole other topic. But we also touch on, in this course, the way Lacan develops, extends the Freudian discovery, the continuity, internal to the discontinuity and the rupture that Freud represents for psychology. Finally, the course is also intimately connected to Zizekian philosophy. The perspective of Philosophy Portal is that Zizek's philosophy is indispensable to any post-psychoanalytic philosophy, that is, any philosophy that really takes up psychoanalysis as a crucial moment, that not only is there a rupture between classical scientific psychology and Freudian psychology, but there is a rupture with consequences for classical philosophy. Understanding the idea, the absolute, core notions in philosophy, core concepts in philosophy, which require a different perspective, a perspective shift after the discovery of the unconscious, because of course, philosophers also have an unconscious. This is what's so radical about the discovery of the unconscious and the development of psychoanalysis is that, well, all the greatest intellectuals, all the greatest minds of history, they also have an unconscious. And to what extent are the greatest minds in history, to what extent are the greatest intellectuals in history unaware, actually, that consciousness and the psyche are not the same thing? We go into that. So, as I mentioned at the start of the video, the course was developed originally in 2019. It was, in many ways, my original passion. And it's a passion that I'm still working through. It's a passion that I'm still understanding myself. The original 8 modules developed in 2019, part of this course. However, all of that was before the existence of Philosophy Portal. In many ways, again, it was my first gesture of getting involved in online education and starting to develop my own relationship to academic knowledge, how I wanted to teach in the context of our present day, whether we want to call them institutional crises or transformations or evolutions. A lot of what would become Philosophy Portal finds its initial drive in this course. But I also added to the course. In 2022, after the existence of Philosophy Portal, after the establishment of Philosophy Portal, teaching Hegel, teaching Nietzsche, I wanted this course to be a part of Philosophy Portal, so I integrated it and I added some things. I added some extra modules that are specifically focused on Freud's papers and unpack them a little more in a little more detail, connect the Freudian discovery in a little more detail to the Lacanian development and the Zizekian philosophy. So all of that is also a part of the course. And there are now completely new additions. Really reinvented, extended in a dramatic way, in a profound way, I think, with updates in 2026, the launch of this course. There are materials here from, as we'll get into, Lacan's Crete course. There are materials here from the portal, and it's really the ongoing philosophical work associated with the unconscious, which make this course not only about the Freudian unconscious, it's about the philosophy of the unconscious now. And so all the modules are extended with supplements, which give you an overview of really the work that's been going on at Philosophy Portal, again, from like 2018 to 2026. This course has it all organized thematically in a way that I think is very helpful for anyone who's really interested in this idea and how philosophers today are thinking about this idea. So let's go into the course itself. I'll take you through the different modules. There's the introductions. The introductions are both from 2019 and 2022 on the left-hand side, and the supplements are spread out in between 2018 and 2026, as we'll see throughout all the modules. You'll get basic videos about Lacan's symbolic imaginary real, the introduction to Lacan with Todd McGowan, Lacan's core concepts, a private video only available in the portal, is in this course. There are some conversations with Samuel McCormick, who's a great Lacanian theorist who does his own work, lectures on Lacan. We had extensive conversations about how to read the Écrit. This is a part of the course as well. And Zizek's ideas about Jacques Lacan. That's all part of the introduction. In the 8 different modules, which I'll take you through briefly, there's also, for anyone who's really interested, original artwork, which I'll show here. I have, while I was doing the original course, I was obsessed with art and doing my own art. It's very, I'd say, not superficial, but it's very amateur art. Just the types of things I was thinking about, the types of things I was trying to cognize while I was originally developing the Freudian unconscious course. But you'll see here module 1 focuses on original trauma. All of the videos in the module 1 are either videos recorded in 2019 or 2022. All of the supplements are then spread out between work that I've been doing in between 2018 and 2026. There's always going to be in the supplements videos from the Return to Freud series organized thematically. There's going to be videos from the What is Sex series organized thematically, and there's going to be some videos which are private videos only available for members, only previously available for members, like, for example, the session on the real in the portal, which is organized there as a supplement for the original trauma module. Then we have the module focused on metaphysics and dreams. Again, on the left-hand side, there's the original videos from the 2019 course and the updated 2022 course. And then in the supplements, you have conversations, presentations on the Freud versus Jung, which was hosted by the Golden Shadow. There's a video from Lacan's Cree course in there. Realism and Psychoanalysis is from What is Sex. There's a video from the Slovenian School Reading Group with Dimitri Kroimans, and also a special lecture on the unconscious, which I gave at the School of Thinking back in 2023, I believe. Then Module 3 is focused on sexuality. There's some videos here from the portal. There's some videos from the Cree course. There's videos from the What is Sex, and as well from the Slovenian School Reading Group. So as you go through these modules, if you consider not only the modules themselves, but also the supplements, you're getting a window into all the work that's going on in Philosophy Portal, all the way in which our different projects are variously related to the development of this idea, the philosophy of the unconscious. Module 4 focuses on language. We've got some Return to Freud videos. We've got some Cree course videos, as well as Slovenian School Reading Group, and a video from the Less Than Nothing series that also becomes a major feature, a major recommendation of the supplements, the way in which Zizek's philosophy is developed in Less Than Nothing in relationship to this idea of the unconscious. Module 5 focuses on negativity. We've got some, again, Return to Freud videos, Less Than Nothing videos, and some conversations with contemporary philosophers like Dwayne Roussel, I should say psychoanalytic philosophers like Dwayne Roussel, Mark Gerard Murphy, Julie Resch. And I think these conversations add some important perspective, because sometimes you can't really understand these ideas only in lecture format or workshop format. Sometimes conversations are necessary and connections with living thinkers are necessary in order to understand the dead thinkers, in order to bring this material to life, to show the way in which these ideas are still active, these ideas are still being explored. There's innovations in the field, there's new perspectives, there's new frames to consider. And Julie Resch, Dwayne Roussel, Mark Gerard Murphy, all of these are, in many ways, pioneers, innovative thinkers, and also their work themselves. The PDFs, there's all these modules are connected to PDFs with the original Freudian writings, Lacanian texts, Zizekian texts, philosophy in the Zizekian orbit, as well as contemporary philosophers that I've been hosting in the Philosophical Conversation series over the last few years. Module 6 gets into drive and immortality, the way in which these two things are actually deeply interrelated. It's one of the most philosophically rich dimensions for me in the entire philosophy of the unconscious. We have some What is Sex videos on Alenka Zupancic's notion of the death drive, which I think are absolutely first class. The way in which Alenka is rethinking the death drive inclusive of Zizek is indispensable in my mind. There's some Less Than Nothing videos. There's a conversation with Peter Rollins about his pyrotheological work, which is related to the death drive denomination. That's a great conversation. And there's a special private presentation that I gave earlier in 2025 titled The Weight of Immortality, which is inspired by some of my more recent writings, which are published in the last Philosophy Portal anthology, Writing for a First Cause. You also get access to those PDFs as well. Module 7 is about society, and this is an aspect where Module 7 is probably something that I'll update in the future. So the Philosophy of the Unconscious course is something that I'm treating as an open-ended course, and you get access to it for life, but this course is also going to be updated as new events, new ideas, new presentations need to be added to these sections to make the course even more complete than it already is. So here in the supplements, we have, again, some Return to Freud, some Less Than Nothing, and Sex and Society session led by Rebecca Prentice. That's a new initiative, a new sharing circle that we've developed at Philosophy Portal. You get access to the opening session of that initiative, and you get another conversation with Dwayne Roussel on psychoanalytic sociology, where Dwayne is really working through the implications of psychoanalysis for sociology. I think that's another example of ideas are still being innovated. There's fresh literature. There are people who are, getting to know the active practitioners in the field today, whether philosophical or psychoanalytic. This course also connects you to these thinkers. Finally, Module 8 is Truth and Creation. And here we have, again, some materials from the Return to Freud, the Acree course, a presentation by Samuel McCormick, which I think fits so well in this section, titled Love of Truth in Lacan's Later Thought. This is moving from the Acree stage to the later Lacan. There is a What is Philosophy video from the Deleuze and Analysis course led by Terence Blake, which is deeply related to the creation of concepts and how we should be thinking about the creation of concepts and their truth, which is why it's a supplement for this section. There's a lecture from the Christian Atheism course, which focuses on Freud and Lacan's unique relationships to religion, very different, of course. And then finally, there's the Writing for a First Cause anthology release event as a part of the supplement, which I think is a meta inclusion here to show that we ourselves at Philosophy Portal and the work associated with Philosophy Portal, we are creating here. We are trying to further develop the philosophy of the unconscious. So as a whole, what this course provides are 8 different modules, from original trauma to metaphysics and dreams, sexuality, language, negativity, drive and immortality, society, truth and creation. And it works through all these modules through perspectives and theory filtered by Freud, Lacan, Zizek, to give you a sense of the discovery, to give you a sense of its extension, and to give you a sense of how this relates to philosophy today. In the supplements, you will get videos which are public, like the Return to Freud videos organized thematically, Less Than Nothing video series, What is Sex, Sex, Masculinity, God conversations, and conversations from the Philosophical Conversation series, which I run on the Philosophy Portal YouTube channel. But crucially, most importantly, for people who are interested in getting involved in the course, there's the private side. There's videos from the portal where we've been exploring different psychoanalytic concepts philosophically, like the real, like jouissance, like libido. There's some lectures from the Acree course, which are supplemented and organized again thematically with the original Freudian ideas. There are some videos from the Slovenian School Reading Group where we're working through concepts that Alenka Zupancic and Mladen Dollar are working through in the, for example, The Odd One In by Alenka, as well as A Voice and Nothing More by Mladen Dollar. There are some videos in the Sex and Society Sharing Circle, as well as the Deleuze and Analysis course, and much more. So this course, it has a lot. There's a lot packed in here. It's a big work. I don't want to actually understate, that this course is really unique in the sense that it is sharing materials and developing materials and packaging and organizing materials that have been really 7-8 years in the works. And it shows that there's a drive here, that this course is really, it couldn't be made in a month. It couldn't be made in a year. It's something that's an ongoing process of self-mediation, not only related to myself, but also related to many other people in the field, and also other people who are working at Philosophy Portal that are interested in this idea and interested in how to do philosophy inclusive of the discovery of the unconscious and its development in contemporary thought. So that's it. Philosophy of the unconscious. This video is public. This video will be incorporated into the course itself as well. There's a link in the description. If you're watching this publicly, if you're watching this on YouTube, there is a link in the description where you can learn more about the course. You can get involved. Members of the portal, crucially, get this course for free. In other words, this course is just a part of the portal now. And that's something that I'm committed to for all members of the portal. Of course, thank you for your support, but more importantly, I am committed to developing all of the materials that we've been working on for years and years and years and organizing them as free resources for members so that we can keep developing this work, so that we can have a shared literature, have a shared course structures, that allow for richer, deeper conversations into the future and connect more living thinkers to our ongoing projects. So, all that's free for members of the portal. And if you're not interested in becoming a member, you can buy this course as a standalone course. That's also possible. So there will be links in the description for all of that if you're interested in learning more, if you're interested in getting involved. And thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for your attention. Philosophy of the Unconscious, Philosophy Portal, and I'm out.